Naval combat is at an all-time low in the wake of Skull and Bones, which made it seem like ship-based combat just had nowhere left to go. If the publisher that made Black Flag couldn't make it work in a game where naval combat was the sole focus, what chance did anyone else have? The only game in the decade since Black Flag's release that was successful at maritime warfare was Sea of Thieves, and it seemed like boat combat would be forever weighed down by the cumbersome movement of boats and how unintuitive it was to steer such complex vessels around with a controller. But then came along Pirate Yakuza and infused sea battles with the element that was needed to make it a joy to engage with. Something that Like a Dragon has infused into nearly everything it touches. Absolute insanity. Since Kiryu's retirement in Yakuza 6, Like a Dragon has tilted its scale more and more towards the wackier side of its adventures, with the harrowing conspiracy narratives taking a back seat. And this complete disregard for reality is the key to making naval confrontations seamlessly wonderful to play. The core issue I've always had with boat battles is the movement of ships. They can't turn on a dime and your weapons are rigidly locked in place. You can't move the reticle to land cannon shots. You have to move the entire ship to line up a shot. And with the rigid movement, that makes turning a nightmare. Naval warfare became 90% lining up the shot and 10% actual combat. Compounding these two issues has always made ship fights difficult to control, creating stale and drawn-out encounters. Pirate Yakuza's solution is the swift and swashbuckling Honolulu drift. Ship drifting is an absolute game changer. In one fell swoop, the biggest criticism I had with naval clashes vanishes. As you can do a sail-by on an enemy galleon on the starboard side, then immediately U-turn to strike their port side. It also offers a massive defensive option by allowing you to quickly pivot out of enemies' line of sight, easily surpassing the cumbersome shield mechanic from Assassin's Creed Odyssey. What's more is that the sea confrontations add an additional element to make sure there's never a slow moment: forward-facing rapid-fire machine guns. Like I said, the problem I have with maritime conflicts is how much of it is spent trying to get the right positioning alongside an enemy just to get off one cannon shot, and when said shot is an exclusively slow but brutal volley, missing your opponent is an exhaustive exercise in frustration as you begin the lengthy process of realignment. So by adding forward-facing weapons that unleash a constant but weak barrage of bullets, completely mitigates that issue and ensures no matter what direction you're facing, you always have something to shoot at. The oceanic skirmishes are so fast-paced and energetic that it's insane that Pirate Yakuza still suffers from the series' long-held traditions of bloated cutscenes and snail-like pacing. It's clear to me now that RGG was the only team that could possibly fix sea conflicts, as they're experts in taking traditionally slow gameplay systems and infusing them with energy and pacing, in the same way they transformed turn-based combat by making each move a visual spectacle and adding the timed button prompts from Paper Mario. They've taken ship combat into the future by removing all the heavy and sluggish moments that made them such a pain. Of course, the issue is that it's going to be hard for future developers to replicate these changes, as these are all thematically consistent choices with Like a Dragon's absurdist tone. Is it realistic for ships to be able to drift on a flat sea, or have rapid-fire guns? No, not at all. But we don't question it because it's Like a Dragon, the franchise that's built on defying your expectations of what a crime sandbox video game should include. More than that, this is a Majima game that almost requires every single aspect of this game be ferocious and frenetic to match his hyper-energetic persona. The chaos this combat breeds also matches with the theme of Majima breaking away from the restrictive Yakuza to the untamed world of piracy. The game is also purposefully anachronistic by including swashbucklers in 2025, a concept that is never brought up or questioned, much to my delight, because it implies that it's just known that pirates never went away, and that this classic style of piracy has just persisted for the last 200 years and people just accept it. However, any other game that could potentially incorporate high sea struggles would most likely be going for historical accuracy, as Like a Dragon has spent decades building up its irreverent tone, so it's unlikely that any franchises that are introduced or make the swap to piracy would feature pirate ships in a modern or sci-fi setting. Although I suppose you can replicate all of these additions through the excuse of magic in a fantasy pirate game. Speaking of which, where the hell is my One Piece open world game? But as it stands now, Pirate Yakuza has mastered naval warfare in video games. However, the optimizations it makes are so sweeping that it's unlikely other developers could replicate it in their own games while still maintaining a sense of realism. Something Like a Dragon has absolutely no regard for. For more Pirate Yakuza essays, here's one about whether Majima fits in better as a Yakuza or a pirate, and I'll be back in 2 days.